I have to tell you, I was thinking, okay, December talk, what am I going to talk about? And I thought of, oh, well, it's going to be Christmas, so maybe I can find out something about Christmas. And knowing that we all know current Christmas, and we had our Santa Claus here in Albion, and he had his old shop, and he rode in the New York parade, and so we knew all about current Christmas. But as I looked it up, I'm finding things about Christmas around the world that I never heard of, and I thought maybe you never had either. First of all, in doing my research, I found out that the Puritans sought to purify the Church of England and purge it of Roman Catholic traditions that they thought were excessive. This included Christmas, which had its roots in the pagan Roman winter festival, as well as the Norse festival of Yule. So they banned Christmas, which I didn't realize. The bitter differences between the Puritans and the Anglicans would eventually lead to the First English Civil War, 1642 to 46, after which the Puritans came to power and banned the celebration of Christmas, which I had never heard before. They banned the celebration of Christmas, Easter, and various saint days. In their strict view of the Bible, only the Sabbath was sacred. Christmas had pagan roots and was especially unacceptable. So you couldn't celebrate Christmas. The Massachusetts Bay Colony, founded in 1630 by a group of Puritan refugees from England, followed this example. According to a law passed in 1659, quote, "Whosoever shall be found observing any such day as Christmas or the like, either by forbearing of labor, feasting, or any other way, would be slapped with a 5-shilling fine." So there, get your shillings out if you're planning on practicing Christmas. In 1681, after the English Civil Wars ended and the monarchy was restored, Massachusetts gave in to mounting pressure and repealed some of the most restrictive laws, including the ban on Christmas. Puritan opposition to Christmas remained strong throughout the colonial period. However, most businesses remained open on December 25th, and Massachusetts didn't officially recognize the holiday until the mid-19th century. So, middle of 1800s, before Massachusetts acknowledged that Christmas was a holiday, which I didn't realize. And in researching this, I found some very interesting things from my side. You never know what you're going to find when you start researching something. So batten down the hatches. If you start looking, you might find an ancient relative, which I did on my grandmother's side. American visitors to Germany in the first half of the 19th century realized the potential of this celebration of nation building. In 1835, Harvard professor George Tickner, who was one of my ancestors, shirt-tail cousin, okay, but still an ancestor, was the first American to observe and participate in this type of Christmas celebration and to praise its usefulness for creating a national culture. That year, Tickner and his 12-year-old daughter, Anna, joined the family of Count van Ungern Sternberg in Dresden for a memorable Christmas celebration. So he actually went to Germany with his daughter and celebrated Christmas there. So now I got to tell my relatives. I know somebody who helped to create Christmas as we know it. But Christmas isn't celebrated everywhere. Many people think Christmas was just being about having fun and getting presents. However, because Christmas remembers the birth of Jesus in the Christian faith, there are many places that don't or won't celebrate it. In some countries, the government is against all religions and faiths, or you're meant to worship the leader of the country. And following a faith that goes against what the government says means you and your family can be arrested, put in jail, or even killed. So be careful while you practice Christmas. Some countries have an official religion and people are only allowed or expected to belong to it. In other places, people who originally come from outside the country are allowed to practice their faith. However, if they tell the native people of the country about their beliefs or practice their faith in public, they can face persecution or be arrested and fined. Be careful where you want to celebrate Christmas. So as you're celebrating Christmas, you might also like to remember that it's not possible for some people to celebrate Christmas, at least in public, and that others might not have even heard about Christmas at all, which blew my mind. I mean, you grow up with Christmas since you're a child, and you're just assuming that everybody else is too, but not the case. When Oliver Cromwell and his Puritan forces took over England in 1645, they vowed to rid England of decadence and, as part of their effort, canceled Christmas. So there. Christmas was not a holiday in early America. From 1659 to 1681, the celebration of Christmas was actually outlawed in Boston. Anyone exhibiting the Christmas spirit was fined 5 shillings. So you better be careful where you want to celebrate Christmas, because you could get fined or you could get killed for celebrating Christmas. When Christmas was canceled, the celebration of Christmas was outlawed in Boston, and the lawbreakers, as we said, were fined 5 shillings. Christmas was declared a federal holiday in the United States on June 26, 1870. The first eggnog made in the United States was consumed in Captain John Smith's 1607 Jamestown settlement. So eggnog goes back a ways. Rudolph, the most famous reindeer of all, was the product of Robert L. May's imagination in 1939. The copywriter wrote a poem about the reindeer to help lure customers into the Montgomery Ward department store. So that's where Rudolph came from. This one, I think we ought to put the recipe out, maybe try it. This is George Washington's original recipe for eggnog. 1 quart of cream, 1 quart of milk, 1 dozen tablespoons of sugar, 1 pint of brandy, 1 pint of rye whiskey, 1 pint Jamaica rum, 1 pint of sherry. Mix liquor first, then separate yolks and whites of 12 eggs. Add sugar to beaten yolks, mix well. Add milk and cream, slowly beating. Beat whites of eggs until stiff and fold slowly into mixture. Let set in a cool place for several days. Taste frequently. I think maybe we'll write that up and put it on a postcard and everybody can pick one up. Yeah, Michael's in charge of making the recipe. Although there's no official confirmation on who invented eggnog, most historians agree that eggnog originated in medieval Britain. Eggnog was an upper-class luxury since they were the only ones who had access to milk, sherry, and eggs, and called the drink posset, while the wealthy kept with the simple recipe and used it for toast for big events. So I will definitely give the recipe to Michael and have him make one up for us so we can all have it for the holidays. And candy canes. Candy canes originated in Germany. The National Confectioners Association says a choir master originally gave the red and white striped candies to young children to keep them quiet during marathon church services back in 1670. And so the kids were about the same as they are today. Yeah. It wasn't until a German-Swedish immigrant decorated his tree with candy canes in 1847 that they became popular as a Christmas candy. So they were around a while, just not looking like canes. The first Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center looked more like Charlie Brown's than the resplendent one today. The iconic tree dates back to the Depression era. Construction workers first placed a small, undecorated tree while working there in 1931. 2 years later, another tree appeared in its place, this time draped in lights. It just kept getting bigger every year. Today, the majestic tree bears more than 25,000 twinkling lights and sees millions of self-takers each season. So yeah, now it's become the ultimate, but originally it was a very little tree. Oh, and this one, I had heard this, but just vaguely and didn't understand it. But you know how somebody writes Xmas? And today we go, that's not right. I mean, I've even heard you're taking Christ out of Christmas. Right? Wrong. Contrary to popular belief, Xmas is not a trendy attempt to take Christ out of Christmas. Christianity was spelled Xianity as far back as 1100. X, or chi, C-H-I, is the Greek first letter of Christ. So X, and back in the 4th century, Constantine the Great often referred to the shorthand version. Some say it was as early as 1021 that the abbreviation XPMAS was used to reference the holiday, which was later shortened to Xmas. So it's not an attempt to take Christ out of Christmas. That is a modern opinion, which is right. Christmas stocking. The tradition of the Christmas stocking originated in Europe back in the 4th century and was inspired by the life of Bishop St. Nicholas of Myra. According to the legend, St. Nicholas heard about the predicament of a poor widower and his 3 daughters. He snuck into the house and saw the girls' recently washed stockings drying by the fire. Wanting to help the poor family, he filled the stockings with gold coins before disappearing into the night. In America, the custom of stuffing Christmas stockings started from a 19th century poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas. The poem mentioned that the stockings were hung by the chimney with care in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. But it did have an earlier origin. Father Christmas, or St. Nicholas, was a patron saint of children, the poor, and prostitutes. Living around the 4th century AD, St. Nicholas was a generous bishop known for giving gifts to the poor, sporting a big beard and a long cloak, much like the Santa we know and love. So this is where our idea of what Santa Claus looks like came from. But even before St. Nicholas, there was another bearded old man called Odin. This deity was worshipped by early Germanic pagan tribes, traditionally portrayed as an old man with a long white beard and an 8-legged horse called Sleipnir, who he would ride through the skies just like Santa's reindeer. During the winter, kids would fill their booties with carrots and straws and leave them by the chimney for the horse to feed on. Odin would fly by and reward the children with little presents in their booties, much like we do with Christmas stockings today. The Santa Claus we all imagine today is a mishmash of the generous St. Nicholas, the god Odin, and Coca-Cola's iconic red dress character. The tradition of Yule and Saturnina also included the modern image of Santa Claus and the tradition of Christmas stockings. So you can see there's some really ancient reasons we celebrate but I never understood any of this. I mean, you understand Christmas, you get up and you got all the toys and you've got mom and dad are there and you eat lots of food. It's Christmas. The tradition of Christmas pudding. Christmas pudding originated as a 14th century porridge called frumenty that was made of beef and mutton with raisins, currants, prunes, wines, and spices. This would often be more like soup and was eaten as a fasting meal in preparation for the Christmas festivities. By 1595, frumenty was slowly changing into plum pudding, having been thickened with eggs, breadcrumbs, dried fruit, and given more flavor with the addition of beer and spirits. It became the customary Christmas dessert around the early mid-1600s, but along with other celebrations of Christmas, it was banned by the Puritans in 1640. Over the years, many superstitions have surrounded Christmas pudding. One superstition says that the pudding should be made with 13 ingredients to represent Jesus and his disciples, and that every member of the family should take turns to stir the pudding with a wooden spoon from east to west in honor of the wise men. So you have Christmas traditions even in how to make the pudding. You might also say get other items, sometimes called tokens or favors, placed in Christmas pudding, which also meant to have special meanings. Bachelor's button. If a single man found it, they would stay single for the following year. Spinster's old maid thimble. If a single woman found it, they would stay single for the following year. So you don't want to find a thimble in your pudding. A ring. If a single person found this, it meant you will get married in the following year. It can also mean you will be rich for the following year. So you want to find a ring in your pudding. That's the main idea of that. Figures of nutcrackers are quite a common Christmas decoration now. However, they only became popular around the world after World War II. Nutcracker dolls have been made in parts of what's now Germany and Czechoslovakia since the late 1600s. They might have originally been made as good luck symbols or caricatures. One story says that a rich but grumpy farmer couldn't find a good way of cracking walnuts and offered a reward to anyone who did. A wood carver from the village made a doll with an opening and closing mouth which was powerful enough to crack nuts. It was a great success and the farmer rewarded the village. That's where our nutcracker came from. By 1800, they were popular decorations in the areas of Saxony and Sonneberg. There are records of them being sold in Dresden market in 1786. Napoleon occupied this area in the early 1800s, and it might have been nutcrackers made to look like Napoleon and his soldiers, which gave them the look we still have today. So when nutcrackers were becoming famous, Napoleon was around. And so they made the nutcrackers look like Napoleon, which probably sold more nutcrackers. A very early Christian tradition said that the day when Mary was told that she would have a special baby, Jesus, was on March 25th. And it's still celebrated today on March 25th. 9 months later is December 25th. So this is where we get Christmas on December 25th. And there were things that I found interesting in other countries and some in this country. Brooms and mops are Christmas traditions. Perhaps you've hidden your brooms and mops when you're not in the mood to clean, but in Norway, they do it with a Christmas tradition in mind. Norwegian folklore advises hiding brooms and mops on Christmas night to prevent evil spirits and witches who return to earth on Christmas from taking the cleaning tools and using them to fly through the sky. So you have to hide them. Fried chicken. This is more recently celebrated tradition that's become popular in Japan. While Christmas isn't exactly a huge holiday there, some people do celebrate it with Christmas feasts consisting of none other than buckets of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Not only is Colonel Sanders now synonymous with Santa Claus, but the brand even purveys Christmas-themed party barrels to mark the tradition. They include salad, cake, and plenty of fried chicken. So if you go to Japan, be prepared to eat fried chicken for Christmas. Fruitcake. The frequently gifted cake that's filled with dried fruits and nuts is eaten throughout the world during Christmas time. But did you know that this tradition actually started in ancient Egypt? While the Egyptians may not have celebrated Christmas, the food got its start amid the pyramids and was even dropped into tombs since it was seen as a must-have food in the afterlife. So fruitcake, be prepared. Maybe you want to put some in your coffin so you've got food for the afterlife. Ukraine Christmas dinner. Ukrainians serve a whopping 12 courses during their traditional Christmas feast, and each one is dedicated to one of Jesus' apostles. So each course is for one apostle. The night of radishes. This one blew my mind. Radishes at Christmas. This is a real night that's celebrated in Mexico, and it's considered to be Christmas tradition. Every December 23rd, residents of Oaxaca, Mexico, witness a competition like no other, in which participants carve nativity scenes into the skin of sizable radishes. Then they put them on display at the Christmas market for all to view. So they create the manger scene with radishes.
Instead of pumpkins.
Instead of pumpkins.
Yeah,
but radishes I'd never heard of.
You'd be pretty small.
Yeah, well, you'd have a small little, But how they get the creative enough to make a face or a body, I'm not that talented in carving. I know I'm not. Shoes by the fire. In the Netherlands, right before Christmas, Dutch kiddos place their shoes next to the fire so that Santa will fill them with tiny gifts. Children also leave carrots in their shoes for the white horse named Amerigo. So they leave carrots for the Santa's horse. Surfing. Didn't think about that at Christmas either. In Australia, Christmas means surfing and lots of it. It's when they're celebrating summer while the rest of us are freezing up here in the northern hemisphere. On the beach, Santa arrives by surfboard instead of a sleigh, and after catching some waves, people celebrate with a Christmas barbecue. So you want a little change in your Christmas? You want to go to Australia. The Yule Goat, which is a new one to me. While we may associate Christmas with reindeer, in Sweden, they have a different animal that symbolizes Christmas. Historians say that the tradition of the Yule Goat goes back as far as the 11th century, first appearing in St. Nicholas' lore as a goat figure that would ward off the devil. Nowadays, it's often seen as an ornament on many Christmas trees. Some people even put giant versions of them in their yard as holiday decorations. Never have seen a holiday goat. No. This one. You talk about food for Christmas. You want a new idea? Here's one for you. When you think of Christmas food, mince pies and turkey are high on the list. In South Africa, however, it's the creepy crawlies that local children look forward to. Fried, festive caterpillars. May seem like one of the more unusual Christmas traditions, but these caterpillars aren't just the run-of-the-mill variety you find in your garden. The pine tree emperor moth, or Christmas caterpillar, is covered in very festive hues, giving all who swallow a little extra luck for the coming year. So you can have fried caterpillars for Christmas if you want to increase your luck. And the Yule Cat in Iceland. One of the more unique festive traditions we've heard of comes from Iceland, where a giant cat is said to roam the snowy countryside at Christmas time. Traditionally, farmers would use the Yule Cat as an incentive for their workers. Those who worked hard would receive a new set of clothes, but those who didn't would be devoured by the giant cat-like beast. Today, it's customary for everyone in Iceland to get new clothing for Christmas to avoid unsavory demise. So you get clothing in Iceland. And there's one I want to talk about. Why do we kiss under the mistletoe? The custom of kissing under the mistletoe seems to come from England. The earliest recorded date mentioning kissing under the mistletoe is in 1784 in a song from a musical comedy called 2 to 1. The custom appears to have started around the 1720s, so in the early Georgian period. Mistletoe was also hung on the Old English decoration, the Christmas bough or kissing bough, which were very popular during the 1700s. Hence the name. Mistletoe was hung on a bough. There were illustrations of kissing under the mistletoe in the first book version of A Christmas Carol, published in 1843. The original custom was that a berry was picked from the sprig of mistletoe before the person could be kissed. And when all the berries had gone, there'd be no more kissing. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today, and I hope you've learned a little bit about Christmas that you might not have known before. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Our priest one time said that they chose the 25th of December because that was the darkest part of the year. If Christ was born, then after that would be bright.
There you go. That could have been one of the reasons. Because these traditions, now some of these would go way back, I understand that, but they were traditions I'd never heard of. Growing up, Christmas was Christmas. You never heard of anything. And I had one set of grandparents from Germany, a grandfather from Poland, and only one that was from English here in the United States. So I'm surprised I didn't hear some of these other traditions. But they were in America, and they did things the way Americans did them, and so there wasn't a lot of talk about tradition, I guess. Anybody else? Well, thanks for coming, and thanks for listening.